Today, I'm joined by a sports entrepreneur. He's a co founder and CEO of Zlait Sports Management. He's an author, a commentator. I think the list goes on, and probably I would take up the entire show just talking about the things that he's done in the past or he's been doing. So I'll let the show unfold and uncover the things that he's involved with regards to sports in our country. It's a privilege and an honor to welcome Nikhil Sharma onto the show. And yes, you are listening to the Totally Indian Football Show with me, your host Siju. Nikhil, welcome and thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Siju, on the Totally Indian Football Show. I'm glad and very happy to be here. Hopefully, I have something to contribute to the show.
Yeah, well, you've contributed enough, and you continue to contribute to the sport in the country. So I'm sure that will add on to the show as well. Uh, let's start with currently what you're doing. You are, I mean, we won't get into the nitty gritties of Santosh Trophy because this episode, I must tell the listeners that it would come out only after the final is done. So we won't get into the details of it. But how are you enjoying Santosh Trophy?
I love it. The passion and fervor that we all have for our states is incredible, right? That's how human beings are. We associate ourselves with a particular city, with a particular state, a particular region. We are like that. And so the fervor that comes along with the Santosh Trophy is incredible. And on top of it, I feel that a great job has been done as far as the infrastructure is concerned. It's great that the Kerala government and the sports department of Kerala took initiative, brought the Santosh Trophy to Kerala, and that's ensured the fact that there's so many people who are going to the stadiums. It's so great to see full stadiums. It gives you that energy to kind of enjoy the sport all the more again. So after a long time to see stadiums that full is incredible, gives you a lot of energy. And I do feel that, Santosh Trophy lost a bit of glory from what it was in the past. Hopefully, with this edition, that kind of comes back, and a lot more people are now aware of it. A lot of people within the footballing community are talking about it. So that's great. And that kind of, gives you a lot of confidence, and you start enjoying the whole thing even more.
Yeah, I think if the major tournaments can't be hosted, I'm sure if Malappuram is gifted any kind of tournament at any level, I'm sure the stadiums would be packed because the way they love their sport is to the next level. I mean, you can't compete that the entire one small region that loves the sport so much, and that's what we've been seeing. And I think, just like you mentioned, it was a great thing to see after 2 years where you don't see fans come to the stadium. It's in a bio bubble, but here we finally witness the actual scene that we must see for a football match, right? Any players that have impressed you? Any picks that you have specifically made a note of?
So let me reveal it here, and of course it'll come out when the finals over. But I'm actually going to Manjari for the semi-finals and to for the finals as well. So I will be in Malappuram when semi-finals and finals take place. Overall, if you ask me, I've been overall impressed by the way the teams have played. Of course, there've been a lot of players who've done well match by match, but I can't say that somebody's like exceptionally. Of course, Gijo Joseph scored a hat trick for Kerala, but some of the other Kerala players are very good as well. But I've overall enjoyed the tournament. I was discussing this on the pre-match show as well. But if you went back 10, 15 years in the Santosh Trophy and you watched it, you'd see a big burly striker, number 9, standing that side and the ball being punted from one side to the other. That doesn't happen anymore. And I'm not saying that was wrong. Nobody should get me wrong. There are no rights or wrongs in football per se. What's right and wrong is what suits you, what are the kind of players you have. So, if you are a big coach and you have great players at disposal, you can play great football. If you don't and you have limitations, then you play with those limitations. But I've seen, by and large, teams wanting to play the ball along the ground, moving the ball side to side, vertically, trying to find the best passes. So the intent is right. Of course, some teams have more experience, so they really look after the tempo of the game. much better. And some of the ones, the we say the younger ones because the likes of Gujarat and Rajasthan are coming back into the Santosh Trophy after such a long gap, like 34 years. That's huge, given the fact that these are such big and developing states. So, barring some of those states, the others have been, they really know how to, keep the tempo of the game alive. So, I've enjoyed the tournament overall. It's just great for Indian football overall.
Well, like I said, this episode does come out, after the finals. But you heard it here. Whatever insights Nikhil had to say, probably after the finals, we'll do something else with you to get a clearer picture of what you've thought of being there. So I'm sure you'll have more stories on from the ground. Now let's move on to Nikhil, the person. Right, you had a degree in production engineering. You've done an MBA in marketing from MICA, one of the prestigious institutions. And then you were born to professors in Chandigarh. Then you moved to Pune. A lot of shuffling you have, and then your introduction to football, Indian football particularly, and then your connection with Shillong Lajong, Northeast United. Then comes up Zlait Sports. That's a lot of thing, right? Up in your resume and your body of work. Where it all started, if we can go back.
I thank you for saying that's a lot of things in my resume. I sometimes feel I'm a nomad, going from one place to the other without really knowing, if what you're doing is right, wrong, or do you have a destination or it's all a journey. But well, the story starts that in during Italia '90, my father was in Turin, right? He had gone there for an ILO course. He's a professor, yes. My mother was a teacher as well. And he came back and told me all the stories that, any person who goes to Turin says, saying that that Juventus is a great club. Platini has played there, and there's a boy called Roberto Baggio. And, so stories basically bring you to sport and everything else in life. And that's how I started imagining. Of course, I tried watching Italia '90, but I was really young at that point in time. So it was late in the night. So if I'd watched, say, half an hour of match all by myself, because my father was there, my mother would, ask me to go to sleep. So I don't have a lot of recollection of the event, unlike '94, which I saw like almost every match, start to finish. And Roberto Baggio did well. So football was my sport, although my father played cricket at an inter-university level. So he's played inter-university, finals, and he played for Punjab University with some of the most illustrious cricketers in India. But I fell in love with football, and of course, I loved cricket a lot. But some of the unfortunate things that happened early 2000s, late 90s with cricket kind of moved me more to football. Also in Pune, where I grew up, schools, because football is a much compact game, lasted only for a few hours, played a lot of football. So I played a lot of inter-school football. I won't say I was exceptional. I was all right. Not too great. Always focused on academics, because that's what our parents wanted us to be, and maybe rightfully, because I didn't have that kind of talent. So I moved through my production engineering. Always continued playing. I moved through my MBA from MICA Ahmedabad. Continued playing, continued following. I played a lot of sports, table tennis, badminton, you name a sport, and I've played it mostly. Maybe not water polo, maybe not polo or golf, but any other sport I've played it with, with a special affinity for football. And growing up, there's only one thing you want. If you're, I think I'm still a hyper nationalist. I do believe that, while the concept of boundaries, etc., is a man-made concept. Currencies and boundaries, etc., is all man-made, but you still have a sense of belonging to a nation, and that doesn't mean you have to go to the border and shout for your country. So I always wanted to move and help Indian football. Helping is, at that age you're looking to help yourself, so not really help, but to work in Indian football. And then once the opportunity presented itself with the Anglian group, with a great man like Sandeep Narang, who continues to be my mentor till date, I kind of took it with both hands, and things kept falling in place. I had I did a few coaching badges to learn. I used to be a. I feel I'm still a student of the sport. Nobody understands this particular sport perfectly. And one thing led to another, and did reasonably well. But I still feel there's so much to do. We're running fast, but the world is running faster. So that's where the whole Indian football story is for me. I wrote a book, egged on by my co-author. I do what I think can contribute to the sport in my small little way, but I think there's many a miles to go.
Yeah, now from that particular thing, you've come to a place at a club called Shillong Lajong. You had an association. You were on the directors, on one of the directors on the board, and we all know, right? It was Shillong Lajong that started the whole thing, and to get the flag bearer kind of a thing that started off with Northeast football. And the contributions are immense from that particular club, and then there are other clubs that joined hands, but this particular club has gone through a lot, and today we don't have them in the top division. With regards, I'm talking about I League. But how did that connection come about with you and Shillong Lajong?
So I joined the Anglian Management Group in 2000, late 2012, early 2013. Um, I was consulting them before that, right before, during the time that they made the investment in Shillong Lajong. And they had a small equity, even in a Danish first division club that went to the Superliga. That association started with there. Within 4 or 5 months, I think one of the directors from Anglian side was, our CFO, who said, "Look, if you're here, you might as well come on the board, because my contribution to football isn't great, but I was here to look over the fact that certain financial transaction has to happen." So I moved into that director's role fairly early into my association with Shillong. I had just started off trying to help work more like a manager who was looking at an investment that the Anglian group has done. We were also doing Anglian football, which is in today's day and age, Khel Now. So that, back then it was more like a social media work that we were doing, and took a much different shape later on, as the Anglian Management Group kind of, came about. So that's how it started. And, it was, I had the best time possibly of my life working for that club. We were a small club, but we did a lot of things that we enjoyed. We did a lot of things that we thought were right. And whether it's having a lot of young boys being scouted and brought in, and giving them game time. I thought that's the most important part of why Shillong did well, is because not only did you get younger boys into the club, but you also gave them game time at 18, 19, 20, which ensured that it's ultimately all about exposure at the highest level. And with the fact that we had a fair bit of sponsorship, the I League was seeing numbers in Shillong which were incredible. I've been to games which it's been pouring mad, but there's still 25, 26,000 people flocking the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium there. It was a wonderful time. And then of course we went to the ISL with Northeast United as one of the stakeholders, which didn't kind of last long. So we moved out of that role fairly quickly post a year. And then from there on, it's always a challenge in the current structure of football in India, to kind of keep afloat a club that required a fair bit of investment. So and anyway, I started focusing more on our work as a management consulting company, which is why. And also we were starting to represent athletes, so I had to resign from, because of conflict of interest. I resigned from my post at Shillong Lajong, but what a wonderful time I had there.
Yeah, when you spoke about the pouring rain and still you find 26,000, 25,000 crowd. That reminded me of me being in the neighboring state, that's Mizoram, for a game. And I'm pretty sure, I think every Indian football or every football fan in this country should be traveling to these places just to see how mad the game is over there and how it is followed. Because we're always seeing what's happening in the European countries or the smaller countries and towns. We have it right here in our neighboring states. With that, now you mentioned you moved to the player management bit, right? So that's where Zlait Sports Management comes into picture. You're the co-founder and the CEO. Tell us more about it, because you guys are into infra as well, and as well as player athlete. Give us a run through of what Zlait Sports Management is.
So, Ryan, after my stint at Anglian, got over, I was looking to do something. Of course, I had a small bit of equity in the previous company as well, but that was just sweat equity. I wanted to, do things. I gained a fair amount of experience. We had good networks across, the Indian footballing ecosystem, and we'd also been exposed to sports infra, which I thought was also a great way to kind of contribute to the whole sporting story in the country. Now, while I understand it's not exactly sport, but if you build good infrastructure, and we had kind of specialized in this decent to good quality small-sided turfs, and people play on there, and of course that kind of increases the human capital of the sport overall. So Zlait primarily works on sports infrastructure. We set up artificial turfs, and the examples are far and wide. We would have done projects right from Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. So all across India, we're a pan India company as far as sports infrastructure is concerned. We have about 18, 19 athletes, which are all of them footballers, that we work with. I also wanted to ensure that the whole athlete management or agency business overall, or agents per se, has, in my view, and I could be wrong, has become a very commercial, transaction based business. And I find a problem with almost every word that I said previously, which is, one, there's so much more to an athlete's life. Can you contribute? Of course, you can't do it all the time, but you should, ideally, right? Then it's become a business. Of course, it has to be, everything that you do and you spend time, effort, money, should be contributing. But we are at a stage in our footballing history wherein a lot of input needs to be given from people into taking care of professional athletes. And I kind of personally, I thought there was a gap there. Of course, if you want to do all of this, you cannot have 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 athletes that you're working with, which again makes it a very transactional business, because can you impact or be directly involved in the lives of athletes if you have 70, 80, 90, 100 athletes that you're representing? No, it's purely a commercial business then, that their contracts are run, your money is gotten, and then of course most players are also satisfied that you've gotten them big contracts. So that kind of egged me on to work with a select few. I also wanted to kind of work with athletes on whom our contribution mattered, right? So they didn't need to be established athletes who were already playing the big leagues, and that's how we got them. But we wanted to make sure that our input counts, and so some of these young players have now started moving up the chain, and some of them still are where we still believe that they will go on and make a big contribution in Indian football. So, and then we do a whole host of sports consulting work as well. There are a couple of very exciting things that are coming up, but maybe this is not the right time to talk about them. I believe that once it has happened, it's much better than rather than just talking about it and for it not to happen. So that's the whole Zlait story. It's our way of One, of course, making sure that our ends meet, but also to see to it that there's a definitive purpose to the organization, increasing the sporting capital of the country.
Now, I'm glad that you partly kind of explained the bit of the athlete management aspect, because I was probably coming to the question and you kind of answered that. But to probably dig in more, so how differently do you guys do it then? If you can maybe explain a little more, how much more do you contribute towards the particular athlete that you support?
So I'll start off by giving you a few examples. Is some of our athletes, see, an athlete's life is finite, right? It's not that he or she will begin at uh, you know 8, 9, 10, and keep going till 60. So as an athlete, the life is very finite, which can be 20, 22, 25, 30, 35, 40, depending on if you're lucky enough and you take care of yourself not to be injured. So one of the things that we actively look to tell our athletes is to be educated, is to not leave their education on 10th or 12th. If they've done their 12th, to go on and finish their graduation. Post graduation, of course, is very, very tough. But in case there's somebody who's well versed with the education and is looking to end his career or her career, we talk to them about that as well. We've had athletes invest their earnings into businesses as well, which doesn't mean my business or somebody else's business, but just to make smart investment choices rather than earning it and losing it on gadget, gizmos, shoes, and the works. Of course, they're young and they need to kind of enjoy the life as well. But we've had athletes owning artificial pitches, which are revenue generating for them as they continue playing. We've had athletes who've had land, so we've worked with them to kind of set up organic farms there. Not doing it ourselves, but trying to get the right people in. We talk to them always about, see, an athlete's life is extremely challenging because their minds are always at war. So we've spent a lot of time, sometimes just counseling players and talking about sometimes the salaries are not in, or they're late, or they have problems with the family, and some of them have been leading the tables in the leagues, and their minds are at war. So we've spent hours and hours together saying, look, trophies are what will be counted at the end of the day when you finish your career. So don't let these things slip right now just because you have other things on mind. So start focusing, whether it's about injury management, whether it's about if they're between contracts and they want to make sure that they're fitter or they're excuse me, ready for the next season. So a lot of these things we continue working with our athletes. We try and maintain, it'll be very utopian of me to say like a family, but we try to believe that there are lots of cases of our athletes not being paid. So to get them legal help, to get them, to advise them, we've also even gone to the extent of actually paying for their survival while they await their salaries. So, some of those things happen. That's professional football. And we want to try and make sure that, we look after them as people rather than just athletes. Of course, I must say, and I cannot claim that it happens all the time, but that's an effort that we make continuously.
Well, thank you for being that honest and sharing the explanation and explaining so well. Because I think that's what the last line that you mentioned. I mean, they are humans at the end of the day, right? We at times as fans of the sport, we tend to forget that aspect, because we see them so often in front of us, play, and we feel that's what they are supposed to do, and that's what we are supposed to do, sit here and talk about it. But finally, coming to the book that you co-authored, right, in the India's Football Dream. I haven't read. I just read a synopsis online, but I'll one day read for sure. But coming to now the present stage scenario where you are at this point, or where we are with Indian football, how do you see the Indian football dream at present and going about from here?
Siju, when I'm saying I joined the Indian football scene, I just meant that when I moved in, it's been almost 10 years now that I've been part of Indian football. I have seen the sport grow, right? When I would have started off, football would have been, cricket would have been 1 to 100, and then football and other sports, tennis, badminton would have started at 101. I would say today that at least cricket is now 1 to 10, football, kabaddi, badminton is big. Quite a lot of sports are now at 11, 12, 13, 14, so on and so forth. As a young kid and as a teenager, as a sports professional, I had, you have a dream of seeing India play at the World Cup. As on date, with whatever we are doing and where we stand, that is India's football dream, and it's slightly distant, And I'm not mincing words because at the core of it, if anybody works in the sporting scene, we should be realistic, right? That's the difference in dream sellers and people who are working on the ground. So it's important for us, and I'm not trying to put anybody down by saying this. I'm just trying to be objective from my side to say that the dream is a little bit distant for us now. And it's not distant because of anything else, but also the fact that there's a lot of footballing activity happening in India. It might not be moving in the same direction, which is also okay for a democratic country because everybody has a right to do what they feel is the right thing. So you have programs which are picking 10-year-old kids and saying when they turn 20 they'll be playing in the World Cup. Personally, I don't believe in those programs because when kids grow, when they grow 14, 15, 16, 17, they have so many other things. They might lose interest in football, or they might, and you can never say the Ajaxes, the Barcelonas of the world have not been able to produce players of that magnitude. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you can't have all of them becoming professional footballers. I think what I'm more interested myself now, if you ask me, to make sure that a lot of young kids are playing all over, boys and girls, getting a lot of game time, getting good quality coaching. If I'm sitting here in Greater Kailash 2 in Delhi, there should be a club of some sort, 5 kilometers in the radius of where I stay, which I know and I can follow, and my daughter can go and play there. It could be pay and play, or it could be a club. Once she goes, she's talented, she can play. Whether it plays in the Delhi B division, whether it plays in the ISL, whether it plays in the I League, we just need maybe, 200 to 2000 clubs all across India, or at least coaching academies that are, of course, everybody has to survive. They need to make sure that, their sustenance is looked after. But at the end of the day, development has to have involvement from the state, has to have involvement from the federation, has to have involvement in everything. Our focus should be when our base becomes big, and our top, which is our leagues, are almost there as far as the quality is concerned, or in terms of the main ingredients. Now, can we have a longer league? Can we have can we ensure that some good moves like reducing the number of international players starting, can we maintain that? Can we keep rules for 5 years on, not change them every year? Keep tinkering with things over and over again. Yes, keep making things better, but we don't need to tinker all the time with things. So I now believe that that's how sport will grow, where there's an organic way of growing football. There are some other sports, like you can pick a shooter today, and the shooter can individually practice with a coach, and they can go on for years and years together, and the shooter will go and shoot somewhere and win. Football, unfortunately, can't happen like that. You can't just keep a bunch of 20, 25, 30 kids at one place and then hope all our eggs in that basket will one day become the best chicken in the world. That's tough. Of course, with the input that you give, they'll be better than the rest, but we've got to have a lot of these, eggs in the basket all over the country. Big, small, whatever size, whatever scale. That's my inherent belief right now with the sport. And if we qualify for the World Cup, wonderful. But think more Asia, think more local level, think more about people enjoying sport, playing a lot of sport rather than, just, of course, you should be obsessed with the World Cup, but I'm much lesser obsessed by the World Cup than I was 10 years back.
Well, I think that's some realization that probably most of us need to have, especially I hope that it comes in where the top guys who actually do a lot of work and probably the work that matters also realize that it's good to dream. It's good to dream. Have a dream of World Cup. It's like how we were in school when our professors or parents said aim for 90, so at least you'll get 70. Right. So, but you keep doing, but you still aim for 90. So if you're still aiming for the World Cup, don't forget that what you have to do to reach there. Let's not just probably host events. But anyway, I think that's another rant for another day. Nikhil, thank you so much for taking time out.
No, so I will not go into that rant. I would say, everybody has different ways of doing different things. As I said, democratic, right? We're very democratic. It's fine if, some of these things get highlighted, right? That's the way somebody is operated for a long period of time, and that's what they believe is right. What we believe is right should be done as well. We can oppose people. I think one of the things, Siju, that I'm sorry, I possibly am taking a little bit more time. I find that, a lot of us have a belief of my way or the highway, right? So I believe that critique is very good. If you have a view, please go ahead and express it. If somebody doesn't follow it, it shouldn't mean that we have a personal grudge or vendetta against them, right? We can all agree to disagree that there are various paths to grow the sport in India. However, as long as we are very true to ourselves and the sport, everything is fine as far as I'm concerned. I'm not looking to oppose people. There's some things that I will not agree with Siju. There are some things that I will not agree with somebody else. That could be anyone in Indian football. If they're open enough, I'd like to express it to them. And they can say, no, Nikhil, this is the way we believe should be done. I should be okay with it and not hold it up against them. Similarly, some things that Nikhil does, if Siju doesn't agree with it, she can always let me know that, Nikhil, in a nicer way, we're not the West wherein we can, just keep blankly talking. The way we say things here in India matters a lot. And so you can always say, Nikhil, I don't agree with this. And I say, Siju, look, this is how I think it should help. So I should have a reason for it and not a blanket saying, oh, no, Siju, go away. This is, that's how it should happen. You don't know anything. So all of that, I think that's how the culture will grow and that's how the sport will grow overall as well. So I don't have a blanket disagreement on things. I have certain things, but I could be wrong as well.
Yeah, well, I'll take that as a cue for probably the recent rants I had to say on Twitter. But yeah, I think we've definitely not grown some thick skin, but to say did it serve the purpose in terms of at least gaining eyeballs? It did. So I think that's at some point. But yeah, that's not a justification of the words I used. But like I said, the rant will another day. We'll keep that for not for now. When I mentioned the word rant here, I was talking about me going about it. But I'm the host here, so I give you the space to talk. Finally, thank you so much, Nikhil, for taking time out, for doing this, and for gracing the show with your presence. Thank you so much.
Really kind of you. And no, please go ahead. Something that you feel very passionate about and very, strongly about. Please express your views. We should be okay about any views. Of course, language can always be looked into. But other than that, if you feel something very strongly about, please go ahead and, I'm sure everybody is okay with it. Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed having a conversation with you. And I wish Indian football and totally Indian football all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to all the listeners, thank you for your love and appreciation. Please do continue. Please do like and follow this our podcast on all the leading platforms, audio platforms. Continue, keep that follow and keep that listenings coming in, please, guys. We need more viewers, more listeners onto our show. Thank you once again. This was Nikhil on the show. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm your host, Siju. Thank you very much.